establish and administer. Every minority, whether religious or linguistic, will have a right to establish and administer. Establish, you said, takes you to the founding moment. Establish should not be confounded or conflated with existence. And I was just reflecting on that. That has some element of importance and great deal of importance for this reason, that there may be a number of circumstances which are necessary for the existence of the institution, but don't go to the establishment of the institution. For instance, no institution can exist without a grant of land. You cannot construct if you don't get land. So your existence is dependent on the lease which you get from the state government or the central government. Second, you may not be able to function if you do not have in today's times aid. So your existence may be conditional on the nature of the aid which you get. Third, apart from this, you need recognition and affiliation. Without recognition and affiliation, you will be only a shell. You have to award degrees. So all these aspects may be relevant to the existence, the viable existence of an institution, but they have no bearing on the establishment of the institution. Establishment, you said, therefore, goes to the founding moment. Look at who founded, look at the history, look at the antecedent circumstances, and determine who really established the institution. In other words, establishment takes you to a point of time in the past. Administer is not really confined to a moment of time in the past. And that's the distinction I wanted to make. And I said I'll put it up right up front. Administer is a continuing facet. Establish is one time, who set it up. Administer is something which is a continuing exercise. So who is actually in management of the institution? Administer, one can broadly say, can be equated, or you can derive some sustenance from the nature of the management. Is the management of that institution in the hands of a minority? And finally, the point which you made was that merely because an institution is regulated by a statutory provision, a statute gives it the color of an incorporated body. A statute regulates various aspects of its existence, does not take away its minority character if the other parameters are fulfilled, namely the establishment and the administration. I think that
I think is the point, my lord. But let me make it clear that I've said so that these institutions must be institutions of excellence. They must accept regulation. All kinds of secular regulations you must accept. That is what TMA Pi says, my lord. That is what is said in Kerala. And therefore, when we look at administer, your lordship put this question to me yesterday, that it can't be 100%. It cannot be. In this day and age, in liberal education, a student body comes to you and says, we want to be there. You accept. The old boys come, they say, we want to be there. You accept. Now, these are big changes, my lord, in the concept of administer.
Teachers have to be represented, for instance, in the management council by statutory provisions.
That's right.
A certain number of representatives of the teachers have to be inducted in the management council.
Absolutely, my lord. And one has to accept this. Gone are the British days, my lord, when you did this or did that. Under the constitution, you have to accept this. That is the point, my lord. And no minority can say, we don't accept this.
So the mere fact that some part of the administration is also looked after by non-minority candidates who have a representative voice by virtue of their service in the institution or their association or engagement with the institution will not, in that sense, dilute the minority character of the institution.
And as Gandhi Faziasm says, if other people come in there, what's wrong with it? Of course, there was a dissent, but that's a different matter altogether.
But it can't be to the point where the entire administration is in non-minority hands.
Quite right.
We may not be able to lay down a numerical test, 50% of the administration or 60%. It will be very dangerous to do that.
It is.
It must be more in the nature of a qualitative test. Is the true essence of the administration such that the minority continues to be in...
And the converse of that argument is the government should not interfere. That is what is said in TMA.
And finally, when you are wrapping up today, we would like you to tell us what are the indicia of administration to indicate that AMU continues to be administered by a minority.
You know, what I showed to your lordship is what was there in the 1920 Act is replicated in the 81 with some changes which are important.
Right.
So all that You all boys are there, the several institutions which are Islamic are there. All that is there in the governing.
Because we will have to also meet the test of is AMU administered by a religious minority?
Right. Well, what once goes to the government, the governing board, are they there or not there? Well, as a wit said in New York, is the there? And I'm going to answer the there is there. May I just, my lord, first outline what I'm trying to do?
Dr. Dhawan, would you be able to wrap up today by 12 o'clock? So
Yes,
that,
yes.
By 12 o'clock?
Yes, my lord.
Then we'll give Mr. Sybil time until 1 o'clock. And then the others can, complete in rapid fire, because we'd like to wrap up the arguments on this case by tomorrow evening, because this bench is not available next week. But we'd like to conclude the.
Not that's up to your lordships, how much time we get.
As we were discussing last evening, you have covered almost the entire. You'll be covering almost the entire ground. Then the others would maybe throw in whatever they want to say apart from.
But the other side must have time to present their case, and that's very important.
May not be able to, my lord, because this would, my lord, it's a 7 judges bench, my lord, going down the history, my lord, and some of the facts, which obviously, my lord, I'm not as a criticism saying, not placed before your lordships, but we may have to place before your lordships.